We need peace, we choose freedom. We need peace, we choose freedom. There was a nation living in peace and unity. Hey, they are people with love and harmony. Oh, yeah. They saw greatness rise up to its purity. With another people of different culture, a different heritage, bias and oppressive. Oh, I see. A nation from trigger of Africa, rising with strength and might and power. In due time, nobody gonna praise us. Rather, you all gonna embrace her. With your flag, with your flag, with your flag, with your flag. Oh yeah. Let the tears of our mothers who lost their children be heard. Let the blood of our heroes speak from now till forever. Let the whole wide world know Biafra is our home. Oh yeah, Biafra is our home. Oh, it's my home. Yeah, Biafra is our home.
I reminisce way back 1967. Death toll and the blood couldn't count them even. Mama screaming, child squealing, pops on the ground. 2.5 years, over 3 million's gone. Why? Cause we asked for our freedom, and we're going back to our sovereign kingdom. They shut us down when we cried, the world said nothing. Sitting back in the crib, watching our suffering. Should I talk about the planes dropping shells like rain? Suka had the first taste of a hero's blood. Abagana Zobunigwe was stronger than flood, but the juke is too strong and fought them off on the chart. Thought the bloodshed's gone, then it came again. 216 and the massacre, it started again. Too bloody now, I couldn't cry tears. Blood dripping down my eyes, water in my vein. We died trying to fight the cause and we're trying to break him. It's our freedom, but the world was against us.
Wave your flag over Africa. Welcome people of Biafra. Wave your flag over all the world. See those people of Zion is here.
It is a nation that the Lord has chosen for the people of Zion. It is a nation that the Lord has chosen for the people of Zion.
We need peace, we choose freedom. We need peace, we choose freedom. Yeah. Let the tears of our mothers who lost their children be heard. Let the blood of our heroes speak from now till forever. Let the whole wide world know Biafra is our home. I see the rising sun from Africa. Oh, this is a sign of victory. Oh, yeah. I see future in Africa. Oh yeah, the people of Biafra. I see light shining on the world. Oh yeah.
So we begin the audio recording from the booklet entitled Biafra, The Case for Independence by Jeffrey Birch and Dominique St. George, first published by the Britain Biafra Association, February 1968. Biafra, the Case for Independence. For introduction, Lieutenant Commander J.L. Hornby, who was formerly worked in the Treasury Department of Federation of Nigeria in 1950 to 1958, has this to say by way of foreword to this booklet. My experience in several ex-British colonies has convinced me that in far too many instances the British government has abdicated its responsibilities for minority races far too quickly, and has all too often, in addition, tried to create large, unworkable federations out of disparate and incompatible units. In Nigeria, as in Central Africa, in East Africa, and the West Indies, a federation was imposed upon indigenous peoples who later rejected it. There is a fundamental difference in Nigeria between the Hausas, who are Muslim and conservative, and the Igbos, who are Christian and progressive. The possibility of conflict was foreseen by many colonial service officials in Nigeria. I myself, with some others, refused to be in any way associated with the system of government bequeathed to Nigeria with independence, and preferred to leave Nigeria under a severe financial handicap rather than bear any responsibility for the terrible warfare that was bound to erupt between Hausa and Igbo. During the years I was in Nigeria, I frequently came across a whispering campaign, quote unquote, against the Igbos. But there was more than whispering. In 1954, the Sardwana of Sokoto was reported in the Daily Times as saying, quote, "When the British leave, we shall sweep the Igbos into the sea," unquote. The Houses are now trying to do exactly that under Colonel Muhammad and Colonel Shua, and with the utmost ferocity. Many of my Igbo friends are now dead, and the peaceful land of Nigeria is ablaze with a war as bloody as the American Civil War, to which it has some resemblance. It is my considered opinion that the British government should be utterly neutral in this conflict between two Commonwealth races, but should end its diplomatic inactivity and take the initiative to send a Commonwealth peace mission to try to bring peace to this vast country. I must conclude by saying that I think Mr. Birch and Mr. St. George have rendered tremendous service to the cause of peace and fair play in writing this booklet, and I believe the contents to be entirely true. I am full of admiration for the Biafran nation in their brave stand against annihilation, and hope that this booklet will stir the British public to understand the tragedy and the British government its responsibilities. Once again, this foreword was written by Lieutenant Commander J.L. Hornby, who was formerly worked in the Treasury Department, Federation of Nigeria, 1950 to 1958. So let us begin. The title for this particular discussion is The Iron Regime, January to July 1966. The Iron Regime, January to July 1966. On the 15th of January 1966, a group of young Nigerian army officers attempted the overthrow of the Nigerian federal government. Many of the details surrounding these events have still to be revealed, but certain facts are clear. The coup was unsuccessful. Having achieved their aims in the north, the junior officers concerned were foiled in Lagos by the Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, Major General Aguiyi Ironsi, to whom they eventually agreed to surrender their arms, and by whom they were detained awaiting trial. Major General Ironsi was invited by the surviving members of the civilian regime to assume full responsibility for the government of the Federation. The young officers were, at the same time, successful in having achieved the overthrow of politicians who were generally accepted to have been corrupt and who had, for some time, been incapable of maintaining law and order. Their achievement was popular throughout the country. To quote Dr. Ukachi-Lois, at present Federal Commissioner for Foreign Affairs, and I quote, "Well might the men who planned and executed the coup be satisfied, for the army takeover was hailed by every section of the country, including the political parties in power at the time of the coup." Close quotation. This is taken from the Development of Modern Nigeria, Penguin African Library. Now, none of the evidence available supports the contention often advanced in recent months in order to excuse the slaughter which was to follow, that the coup was a tribal Igbo involvement aimed at the domination by Igbos of the central government. All the indications are to the contrary. Dr. Aribo describes the revolt as widespread, well coordinated, and effective. Close quotation. Widespread, well coordinated, and effective, quote unquote. And he quotes Major Nzeogwu, one of the leaders of the revolt, as saying that the mutineers constituted, quote unquote, a national company, and that, quote unquote, most of those concerned with the revolt in the north were northerners, close quote. Once again, that the mutineers constituted a national company, quote unquote, and that most of those concerned with the revolt in the north were northerners, quote unquote. The federal government publication Nigeria 1966 does not directly allege that the coup was an eastern plot, quote unquote. It does, however, imply this by describing the plotters as a small group of army officers, mainly from the Igbo ethnic group of the eastern region, quote unquote. It furthermore suggests even more indirectly some sort of involvement in the coup by Major General Ironsi. Nevertheless, the coup is finally described as having been, quote unquote, foiled by intervention of the bulk of the Nigerian army. Close quotation. Another more detailed official account of the events of this time, January 15th, 1966, before and after, that's from the government printer, Enugu, provides evidence that leading northerners, including Major Hassan Usman Katsina, who was now the chairman of the Council of Northern States, were closely involved with the mutineers. Quote, during the press conference of 19 January, at which Major Nzogun introduced Major Katsina as the new military governor of the North, Major Nzogun said that he would always remember that at a crucial moment Major Katsina was on his side. To this, Major Katsina replied, quote, I have been able to help Major Nzogun with some of his problems during the past few days. I am his good friend, and I am sure that he will now help me. We will work together for the betterment of our country, close quote. In the same manner, Alhaji Ali Akilu, head of the Northern Civil Service, collaborated with Major Nzogun and ensured that the latter had the necessary funds to pay local workers. At a press conference on January 15th, 1966, Major Nzogun appointed a government of civil servants under Alhaji Ali Akilu, who was designated officer administering the government of northern Nigeria. A government which was, to quote, to stamp out nepotism, tribalism, and regionalism, close quote. A further accusation made against the Ironsi regime, which has often been accepted as adding weight to the charge that there had been some collaboration between the plotters and Major General Ironsi himself, is that the individual mutineers who had been placed in detention after the coup were never brought to trial. Well, the Eastern government, January 15, before and after publication quotes in West Africa, edition 29th January 1966, as saying that the subject was certainly on the agenda of the very first meeting of the Supreme Military Council. The Eastern government goes on to say, a decision was taken by the Supreme Military Council that Lieutenant Colonel Gowon, Chief of Staff, Army, should investigate the circumstances of the revolution, ascertain the extent of guilt of each participant, and submit his findings to the Council as a matter of extreme urgency. This fact Lieutenant Colonel Gowon has never told the world. In meeting after meeting of the Council, Lieutenant Colonel Gowon was asked about his report, and each time his reply was that he had no time and that he was still collecting a lot of evidence. When at last, in May 1966, he announced that he had finished, members of the Council asked if they could have copies of the report. His reply was that they would have them as soon as they were ready. Up till now, March 1967, the Supreme Military Council has not received the report of Lieutenant Colonel Gowon on the events of 15 January 1966. A final comment on the question of the intentions of the 15 January 1966 revolutionaries was made by The Economist on the 12th of February 1966, who pointed out that even if the revolution was an Eastern one, which is by no means proved, this is largely academic, because the men who carried it out are not now in power. So the argument is now academic because the men who carried it out are not now in power. Who indeed were the men in power in Nigeria at the time of Economist's Lagos correspondent made this observation? Well, the suggestion has frequently been made that the avowed intent of General Irensi's regime to achieve a unitary form of government simply masked an attempt by the Igbos to dominate Nigeria. It is said that the massacre of Eastern officers and other ranks of the Eastern origin in the army, which followed at the end of July, was the inevitable and spontaneous reaction of the North to this undercover attempt at Igbo domination of the whole country. At the time, General Irensi's regime promulgated Decree number 34, which was May 1966, a decree which would have resulted in greater centralization. The composition of Irensi's government and armed forces at that time was as follows. The Supreme Military Council. In the north, you have 2 members. From the west and Lagos, you have 3 members. From the Midwest, you have 1 member, and from the east, 2 members. That's the Supreme Military Council, hardly an Easterner domination. The Federal Executive Council. In the north, you have 3 members. West and Lagos have 3 members. Midwest had 1 member. In the east, you have 3 members. Hardly an Eastern domination. heads of federal civil service. From the north you had 8, from the west and Lagos you had 5, Midwest you had 7, from the east you had 3. Hardly an eastern domination. From the heads of federal corporations and institutions, in the north you had 6, in the west you had 12, in the Midwest you had 1, in the expatriate you have 3, and in the east you had 3. Finally, the disposition of army command. From the supreme commander you have from the east brigadiers. You had from the west there were 2, from the north there was 1. No brigadier from the east. Battalions. In the east you had 3 battalions, in the north you had 2 battalions, in the west you had 1 battalion, in the Midwest you had 1 battalion. Hardly a west and eastern domination. In the headquarters, in the east you had 2, in the north you had 2, Midwest had 1. Special branches, in the west you had 3, in the north you had 2, in the east you had 1. The source of these outlined above is from January 15, before and after, the government printer published in Enugu. Plainly then, the suggestion that the violence which broke out in northern Nigeria in May was a spontaneous reaction to the attempt at Igbo domination through the Ironsi regime rings false. David Loshak, writing in the Daily Telegraph on 17th June, gave this explanation of the origins of the riots which resulted in some 3,000 Easterners being killed. Quote, "The riots and disorder developed inevitably from demonstrations which were well planned and occurred simultaneously over a huge area. Only the dispossessed and now outlawed politicians have the necessary organizational machinery for this. So when Hausa slaughters Igbo, it is also a sign that the politicians are fighting back. There are powerful interests too manipulating the politicians. It is easy to see that some large international commercial concerns, which had key personalities in their pockets, would like to see them back in power." Close quotation. The official account of Gowon regime goes a long way to support this view. Nigeria 1966, the crisis. It states, "Meanwhile, in the north, the local petty contractors and party functionaries whose livelihood depended solely on political party patronage became active. Most of them, like their counterparts in other regions, were indebted to either the Northern Marketing Board or the Northern Nigerian Development Corporation. They were the hardest hit by the change of government, especially as all those indebted to Marketing Board and the Northern Marketing and the NNDC, were made to pay up their arrears. NNDC stands for Northern Nigeria Development Corporation. They were made to pay up their arrears. They resorted to whispering campaign, rumor mongering, and incitement, aided and abetted by other factors. They are the elements most close to the ordinary people, and they have utilized that to create a public opinion which is very strong and potentially dangerous against the authorities. So the May riots and the reception given to Decree number 34 were a blow to all supporters of the One Nigeria concept. Support for this concept was widespread among the Nigerian elite, not least among the Igbo-speaking portion of this elite. At this moment, with 3,000 of his people lynched in by northern mobs, and the rest of the 2 million strong eastern community in northern Nigeria poised to return home to the safety of the eastern provinces, Colonel Ojukwu, military governor of the East, broadcast an appeal for calm on the morning of the 30th of May, 1966. He said, quote, "I wish to assure all of you that the national military government is taking all necessary steps to bring the situation back to normal. The steps taken so far have had a salutary effect. Those Nigerians who are fomenting these disturbances will face the consequences of their actions, and their foreign backers will be dealt with in an appropriate manner." Close quotation. The exodus of Easterners from the north was therefore prevented. It is clear that Colonel Ojukwu realized, in common with his fellow members of the Supreme Military Council, that if the eastern community resident in the north had returned to the east, all hope of forging unity in Nigeria would be lost. Some weeks later, Colonel Ojukwu expressed more plainly his attitude at that time toward the May massacres in relation to the future of Nigeria. In his address to Alhaji Ado Bayero, Emir of Kano, whom he had named Chancellor of the University of Nigeria in eastern Nigeria, he said, referring to the May riots, "Lives and properties have been lost. Many have been made homeless. Others have been bereft of their loved ones. Confidence has been shaken. Fear has replaced faith in one towards the other. These are sad reflections which must remain a source of guilt and shame for all who, by deliberate acts and insinuations, were responsible, directly or indirectly, for them. We cannot restore the lives which have been lost, nor the blood which has been shed. But we should not ignore the fact that they have been valuable lives and blood. It must therefore be our prayer that the innocent blood thus shed will be accepted as the supreme purchase price for the solid and everlasting unity of this country, and that the events which had led to the situation will forever be the worst that this country should experience. Close quotation. Thank you.
We need peace, we choose freedom. We need peace, we choose freedom. There was a nation living in peace and unity. Hey, they are people with love and harmony. Oh, yeah. They saw greatness rise up to its purity. With another people of different culture, a different heritage, bias and oppressive. Oh, I see. A nation from trigger of Africa, rising with strength and might and power. In due time, nobody gonna oppress us. Rather, you all gonna embrace her. With your flag, with your flag, with your flag, with your flag. Oh yeah. Let the tears of our mothers who lost their children be heard. Let the blood of our heroes speak from now till forever. Let the whole wide world know Biafra is our home. Oh yeah, Biafra is our home. Oh, it's my home. Yeah, Biafra is our home.
I reminisce way back 1967. Death toll on the blood couldn't count them even. Mama screaming, child squealing, pops on the ground. 2.5 years, over 3 million's gone. Why? Cause we asked for our freedom, and we're going back to our sovereign kingdom. They shut us down when we cried, the world said nothing. Sitting back in the crib, watching our suffering. Should I talk about the planes dropping shells like rain? Suka had the first taste of our heroes' blood. Abagana Zobunigwe was stronger than flood, but the juke is too strong and fought them off on the chart. Thought the bloodshed's gone, then it came again. 216 and the massacre, it started again. Too bloody now, I couldn't cry tears. Blood dripping down my eyes, water in my vein. We died trying to fight the cause and we're trying to break him. It's our freedom, but the world was against us.
Wave your flag over Africa. Welcome people of Biafra. Wave your flag over all the world. See those people of Zion is here.
It is a nation that the Lord has chosen for the people of Zion. It is a nation that the Lord has chosen for the people of Zion.
We need peace, we choose freedom. We need peace, we choose freedom. Hey. Let the tears of our mothers who lost their children be heard. Let the blood of our heroes speak from now till forever. Let the whole wide world know Biafra is our home. I see the rising sun from Africa. Oh, this is a sign of victory. Oh, yeah. I see future in Africa. Oh yeah, people of Biafra.